For this whole part of the course, we have been assembling agents by hand. A prompt here, a model call there, a tool wired in, some memory bolted on, glue code holding it all together. It works, but it is a lot of repetitive plumbing, and you rebuild it every project. So, naturally, people made frameworks to handle the plumbing for you. The most famous by far is LangChain, and it has a funny reputation. It is simultaneously the most popular AI framework and the most criticized one. Beginners are told to use it, then told to avoid it, and end up confused. So today we do something simple and rare. We explain what LangChain actually is, why it exists, why people complain about it, and give you an honest answer to the only question that matters: do you actually need it? Quick note before we dig in. If you find this useful, subscribe and drop a topic you want explained in the comments. Now, let us get into it. Here is the whole idea in one sentence. LangChain is an open-source framework for building applications with language models that gives you standard building blocks for prompts, models, tools, retrieval, and memory, plus a way to connect them together. So you can compose an app without writing all the plumbing yourself. The name is the clue. Lang for language model and chain for linking steps into a sequence. That is the whole spirit of it. Why does it exist at all? Two real problems. The first is integration. There are dozens of model providers, vector databases, and tools, each with its own slightly different code. LangChain wraps them behind a common interface, so swapping one model for another or one vector store for another is a small change instead of a rewrite. The second problem is orchestration. Real apps are rarely one model call. They are sequences. Take the user's question, fetch relevant documents, stuff them into a prompt, call the model, parse the answer, maybe call another tool. That is the RAG pipeline we built earlier, and the agent loop after it. LangChain gives you a clean way to express those sequences instead of handwriting the wiring every time. Standard parts and a standard way to chain them. That is the pitch. Now, the framework has evolved, and this matters because a lot of the old criticism is aimed at an older style. The modern way to use LangChain is called the LangChain expression language, usually shortened to LCEL, and it is genuinely elegant. The core idea is that every building block, a prompt, a model, a parser, is a standard composable unit they call a runnable. And you connect runnables using the pipe symbol, the vertical bar, the same pipe you may know from the command line. So you write something that reads almost like a sentence. Prompt, pipe, model, pipe, output parser. The output of each piece flows automatically into the next. And because every chain is built from these standard units, you get streaming, batching, parallelism, and async support for free. The same chain runs in all those modes without you rewriting it. That readable, pipe-it-together style is the modern face of LangChain, and it replaced the clunkier, more rigid classes from the early days. So why the criticism? Be honest, because it is partly fair. The complaint is that LangChain can add layers of abstraction you did not need, that for a simple task, calling a model directly in a few lines is clearer than learning the framework's particular way of doing it. And that when something breaks, you are now debugging through someone else's layers instead of your own simple code. There is truth in that. A framework is a trade. You gain standard parts and lose some transparency and control. For a small, single-purpose script, that trade often is not worth it, and reaching for LangChain can be over-engineering. The mature view is not. LangChain is good, or LangChain is bad. It is. A framework earns its keep when your project is big and messy enough that the plumbing it saves you outweighs the abstraction it adds. So here is the honest, when to use it. Reach for LangChain when you are juggling many different components and integrations, when you want to swap models or vector stores without rewriting, or when your app is a real pipeline with several moving steps that you would otherwise wire by hand again and again. Skip it and just call the model directly when your task is simple, when you want maximum transparency and control, or when you are still learning and adding a framework would only hide the very mechanics you are trying to understand. Which, by the way, is exactly why this course taught you the raw concepts first so you could judge a framework instead of hiding behind one. So how does this land depending on who you are? As an individual learning, my honest advice is to build a couple of things by hand first, then try LangChain so you can feel what it is actually saving you rather than treating it as magic. As a startup, LangChain can genuinely speed you up early, especially the integrations and the ability to swap pieces while you are still figuring out your stack. Just stay aware of where its abstractions start, costing you more than they save. And as a large enterprise, the calculus is about standardization and maintenance. A common framework across many teams can be worth real money in consistency and shared tooling, weighed against the dependency and the debugging layers it introduces. There is no universal answer, only the trade, made on purpose. So let us bring it home. LangChain is a framework that gives you standard building blocks for language model apps and a clean, modern way to chain them together with LCEL piping runnables into pipelines, solving the integration and orchestration plumbing so you do not rewrite it every time. It is worth it when your project is complex and overkill when it is simple and now you know enough to tell the difference. But there is a limit hiding in that word, chain. A chain runs in a straight line, step, 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 to the end. Real agents do not work in straight lines. They loop, they branch, they retry, they sometimes pause for a human. Modeling that needs more than a chain, it needs a graph. And the tool built exactly for that, from the same team, is where we go next. It is called LangGraph. That is the core of it. If this helped, hit like and subscribe, ring the bell for the next deep dive, and tell me in the comments what you want broken down next. Thanks for watching.